Hi guys, welcome to the latest episode of Cricket Draft Insight. This isn't the first time that I've attempted to make this video. I've had a bit of a nightmare on the live stream front, so I'm going to talk to my phone but look at some information on my computer. I saw some tweets on Twitter about BASRA, batting average and strike rate aggregate, and it seems as though a lot of people want to move away from using these statistics. They're a bit unfashionable. We see graphics nowadays on the screen and they don't even refer to batting average and strike rate. There are obviously scenarios where a batter goes to the crease. Maybe they don't need to score a run a ball, so they knock it about, they score 15 off 20, see the side home, and it affects their career figures. But of course, their career figures hopefully pan out over the course of a career. I've mentioned, subject to career figures, about other batters who, they're averaging in that 30 to 35 bracket, and I'm trying to tell you these are good batters, and a lot of people, as we'll look at, will just look at these numbers and say they're averaging about 30. They're not, they're nothing to write home about. But maybe they played a lot when they were young, took them a while to establish who they are, particularly the batters, and now they've developed. Or maybe they did just have a good season last season, or a poor season, or maybe they started well and then they plateaued and now they've kicked on. But yeah, those tweets about BASRA just sort of stimulated me to look at the statistics of a few players. So I'm going to start with Ryan Higgins, who's, a county championship regular for me, the absolute linchpin of my side the last couple of seasons, Mr. Reliable, Mr. Consistency, and I know that he's a popular player. But it's actually his T20 statistics that appeal to me. He's got 6 half-centuries in 102 innings. There's 29 not outs there, and like a lot of players, I think he sort of worked his way up the order. I think he was back, might even have been 4 last year in a very poor Middlesex side. And I think a lot of people have the impression with Higgins, not really a T20 player. But he did hit, it mentions on Cricinfo actually, in his early days at Middlesex, there was a quick fire 50. So he demonstrated early in his career that he could do it. It was like 68 off 28, but he's only got 6 half-centuries in over 100 matches, and I think 2 of those, whether maybe it was the last 2 games of last season, absolute, I think it might even have been 200+% strike rate innings. So he seems to have really kicked on, really developed as a T20 batter. His bowling statistics, okay, the economy's 9.26, so that might not cry out, selecting the T20 side. But like I say, his batting, so we can say, 6 half-centuries and 100 matches doesn't sound great. But like I say, I think a couple of those came late last season. So I'm kind of backing him to kick on this season and perform again. Kieran Carlson is a player that, if you've watched my videos, I'm reasonably keen on. I brought him into my side last season. Another one, some of these batters we're going to look at, batting average 33.85, which just seemed to be on the way up. Strike rate is 61.9, so that's a number that appeals. I think if you look at a lot of batting averages and batting strike rates, you'll see them about around the 50 mark. Now, obviously, we think the game is evolving. Ben Duckett is one who I'd love to say, if I'd been on Twitter for a few years, I'd be feeling pretty smug right now, because I always felt he could be like our David Warner and take the game away from the opposition in a session and sort of make a result possible, sort of eliminate the draw. Of course, it's not just Duckett, England's side. That's how they're going about their way now. Players like Harry Brook coming. But anyway, I'm talking about Kieran Carlson. 1 day average is 28, strike rate of 97. In T20 cricket, you're probably a bit surprised because his top score 77, only averaging 19. Quite a powerful batter, capable of hitting a few sixes. But you do sometimes see it that some of these slightly more aggressive red ball players, 1 or 2 more that we'll come to, it doesn't quite happen in T20 cricket, not straight away anyway. Maybe they need to find a balance between those boundary capabilities, boundary hitting abilities, and sort of knocking it about a bit. But again, he's a player I'll be keen on. 11 centuries and 20 half-centuries tells you that when he does get in, he is capable of converting and contributing with the ball too, which we spoke about before. Very much intending having him in my side this season. Moving on to Ben Code, we've done an all-rounder, we've done a batter. If we just have a look at bowler, because Ben Code is one, and we'll come to the other obvious one again. Few players I've spoken about before, but I am going to go a bit mainstream as we go through this list. So 246 wickets at an average of 20 is just phenomenal. Your bowling average is 20. That's phenomenal. But he is contributing more with the bat. And I know one or two of you guys have mentioned before, and this is kind of what we expect. Obviously, you work your way down the order, you find a lower average. But historically, you might have said a quicker strike rate. And obviously, like I'm saying, there's a lot of batters towards the top are now scoring quicker. But you often find those guys down the order score their runs quickly. The thing I've always found curious about Ben Coden, and I think he did double this last year, so he's played 64 first-class matches, 109 innings in the field, he's only taken 4 catches. Now, I know he might field on the boundary, but that does seem like a low number to me. But like I say, he's going to bring you some bowling points, and I think more and more maybe some batting points. With Yorkshire and hometown heroes, Johnny Tattersall. So we've done all-rounder, batter, bowler. Let's look at a wicket-keeper. I think this guy definitely falls in the underappreciated bracket, okay? An average of 33 in first-class cricket. He's got over 100 dismissals. I think he's kept wicket most of the time when he's played. There will be some times where that wasn't the case. He did so well, having been released after a couple of games, to re-emerge as a wicketkeeper and get back in to being a professional cricket. It's very unlucky at the start of last season. He got injured, so missed the games. Then he came back in the T20s. Don't think that's his best format. He was scratching around. His one-day record's very good, and he didn't play in the one-dayers last year. Top score of 89, 7 half centuries in 25 innings to average 31 with a strike rate of 98. Those are good numbers. Harry Duke played, which I'm absolutely fine with, but I just think Tattersall merits selection too. First class cricket, okay, the strike rate's 44, but an average of 33, because that's like on a par with Carlson. And I haven't got him on the list, but Miles Hammond is one I've talked about. Even Daniel Bell-Drummond working his average up. 33, I know it's not, Josh Bohannon is the one who springs to mind. He's 46, somebody like Ollie Pope. But if we go back to, one or two examples of, county megastars who then didn't quite cut it at international level, there's a lot of players in this sort of 30 to 35 bracket. I don't think Johnny Tattersall is top of anybody's list for their county championship side. But you could do a lot worse, Aneurin Donald, don't know if I've mentioned him at all this winter. Very excited by Aneurin Donald. First class strike rate is 74.31, right? So he averages 31. Again, I'm not expecting him to be sort of at the forefront of a lot of people's thoughts because he hasn't played much red ball cricket in the last few years. And again, you can look at his white ball numbers. You can take a snapshot of his white ball numbers and say, Paul, why are you interested in this guy? Averages 23 in list A cricket and only 18. So similar to Carlson in a way, only 18 in T20 cricket, even though we know he's a stunningly destructive batter. Strike rate is 75 in first class cricket. That one-day average of 23, only 23 with the 200s that he scored last season. Like, those numbers are only going up. And in first class cricket, that ability to score quickly, that strike rate, for me, is ahead of his time. He's found some form last year. He's fit. He's raring to go in a new home. Very excited by Aneurin Donald. Oliver Price at Gloucestershire. Mentioned when I was looking through the 11s, the provisional potential 11s, him and Graham Van Buren. So Graham Van Buren, again, we look at numbers, we see a history as an all-rounder, but not necessarily recently. Brett D'Oliveira too. It's going to be interesting to see how Oliver Price develops. 10 first-class wickets at an average of 72. Again, you take a snapshot of those numbers, you think, part-time bowler, averaging 72, not picking him for bowling, not picking him in all-rounder category. But he made really good progress with the bat, and I don't think he's going to abandon his bowling. I think he's still going to have a role to play at Gloucestershire. And when we saw the performances from the likes, something like Josh De Cares, the way he developed last season, I still think there's a chance Price could go crazy in a game or two and take some wickets or just chip in from time to time. And when I'm looking at my side and I'm looking at a few batters, I've mentioned going very strong on the bowling front, the pace bowling front of some of these bowling all-rounders. Do I just need a bit more batting? And Price, who's capable of scoring runs, maybe bat 3 or 4, take some wickets, not going down the route last season of batters who bowl a bit, but if he could contribute bat and ball, maybe just strengthen my batting a bit. He's one, I'm set on about 9 players. There's 1 or 2 roles to confirm he's in the equation. We'll see how the budget goes. Going to head over to Australia now with Scott Boland. Sorry, you're probably sick of the sound of me talking about players like Kieran Carlson and Anna Donald, Ryan Higgins, Ben Code for England, etc. Scott Boland, let's go mainstream. I know a lot of you are keen on him. So 364 first-class wickets at an average of 24. Now, I remember Scott Boland being a bit expensive in, white ball international cricket. I think it was around the time South Africa were going pretty crazy. And then suddenly, got selected for a test match, did sensationally, dried up a little bit in a couple of games, but still a very good bowler. But what's interesting about him, and I know there's a similar element to Ben Code's figures, though I feel sometimes he's maybe had the opportunity coming back from injury or filling in a little bit. But you sometimes see this. Scott Boland's first-class average is 24. He's got all those wickets. We think of him as being an extremely economical bowler. 81-day wickets at an average of 40 is just sort of weirdly high, isn't it? And actually, on the subject of Boland, as good as he is, Potts has been sensational for All England Lions. Cars, Rain, mentioned about Middlesex. So he does have other bowlers around him who, as good as he is, could rob him of wickets. When you're thinking about your county championship side, mentioned Essex have Cook and Porter, and then who? A double-edged sword, isn't it, in terms of what's around them taking wickets, getting into the lower order, maybe giving your bowler the chance to take wickets, but maybe they're also taking wickets away from them. But just interesting with Boland how his numbers in one day cricket aren't particularly amazing. Staying in Australia with somebody whose one-day numbers are amazing is Daniel Hughes, who I feel is a slightly anonymous cricketer. I posted the other day he scored his 11th century to go with 11 half centuries in one-day cricket. He averages is 59.88 in one-day cricket, yet you've never ever heard a suggestion that he should represent Australia. I could go back to Ben Code and talk about James Anderson, players being in the way. Daniel Hughes, David Warner would be the obvious one. We've seen players, Cameron Bancroft, Marcus Harris, Matt Renshaw. Because a first-class average of 36, I know one or two of you, weren't particularly impressed. Perfectly reasonable in my opinion. The thing I think about Hughes, if you look at his strike rate in T20 cricket, it's 121.71, which I know a lot of people are going to think is a bit low for an opener in T20 cricket. But I've, managed to watch a bit of the Big Bash, and I do think there are times where Sydney Sixers, they lose some early wickets. You absorb a bit of pressure. He stays there, and in a run chase, he's the guy you want. There is still a place for that kind of absorb pressure, stay there, pick it up a bit later, and with other hitters around you. But perversely, I get it, Sussex want to invest in their young players, but they've signed him for the Blast in the county championship, so I assume he's going to play local club cricket. But I feel they would have been better signing Dan Hughes for the One Day Cup. Yes, they want to invest in their young players, but it's the same with any county, isn't it? I will say about Yorkshire, if they sign somebody, James Wharton doesn't play. But, maybe they can benefit from being around good players. Obviously, Hughes isn't an international marquee player, but in the case of Sussex, I think they want to be competitive. Should have signed him in the One Day Cup. Okay, so Tom Abel is one who's really hot at the moment, been fantastic in the South Africa T20, playing a bit in the International League T20. Didn't have a great season last season. And his numbers again, so his averages are all in that 30 to 33 bracket, but 14 first-class hundreds and 34 half centuries tells you he's a capable player. He can get in, he can go on. Obviously, he's been captain. Also with the ball, he's only got 2 wickets in list day in T20 cricket. He's got 64 in first-class cricket. He didn't bowl much last year. I think he's one of those bowlers who does benefit from not being over-bowled, but at the risk of sounding like I'm contradicting myself, should bowl more. Maybe moved up and down the order a bit. I think a lot of people would have said, is he really a free? But I think he did score 100 late last season and relieved of captaincy, and he seems, hot at the moment. I know that's white ball cricket, but that's the way it goes, isn't it? People developing their white ball skills, then can they take that to the longer format, score more runs without compromising their defences or, longevity? So it'll be interesting to see how he goes this season. Another one I wouldn't have thought would be overly popular, but could come off. So Graham Clark at Durham was in all my squads last year. was at times admittedly on the bench in the county championship, but he scored 300. So again, snapshot of these stats, you look at Graham Clark, who's about 30 years old, and he say he's got a batting average of 30, and you're like, but he scored 300s. So 3 of his 400s came last year in first class cricket to get that average to 30. And this is a really interesting one, because we can say, like, Graham Clark is not worse than an average of 30, but an average of 55 or 60 last year probably isn't true. And that was in Division 2. Now we're going Division 1. So there are all these variables. But like I say, I think 30 is certainly capable of averaging 30. I'm not anticipating picking him because there is so much competition. But when you're just trying to gather a fair reflection of what a player is, and we're defining them by a batting average, it just doesn't always tell the whole story. And it'll be really interesting to see how he backs it up this season. He scored hundreds, I think it was in the T20s or the one dayers, and close in the other. You know, seems like a really popular player, so hopefully he can back up last season in the Greater Challenger Division 1. Just coming to the last couple of players, and another player that's going to be really interesting to see how he does in Division 1 is Ali Orr. So small sample size, but averages 47, did one score double 100 in the One Day Cup. I think he got run out a couple of times last season, and he got some criticism, and there seemed to be a bit of falling out, and then he was injured and then didn't quite get going again. I said before, I think he's a really sensible signing. You can talk about sort of displacing players, but Hampshire just had a vacancy for like an actual opener. So his numbers, 4 centuries, 8 half centuries to average 39, having maybe had a bit of a wobble. The suggestion there is if he's a 40 average kind of guy, that does put him above some of the others we've seen. And that's impressive for somebody who I think generally has opened. But he's just gone a little bit cold and now has to get in the groove at a new home, opening in Division 1. So I'm tempted by him, but it is a challenge. Obviously a good young player. I think is he 22? So, yeah, we're just going to see how it goes. But he's one I'm really, really interested to follow this season. I'd just like to finish off with Alex Lees. So, posted an article a bit back. Bell Drummond, Hammond, Clark, was it Carlson? All have career averages like 30 to 35, but did a bit better last year. Donald, who obviously didn't play first class cricket last year, averages about 31 with that strike rate. And as I say, you can look at those numbers and say, Paul, you're not going to do very well in Cricket Draft County Championship game picking those players. But if we go back a couple of years, would people have thought you were going to do well if you picked Alex Lees, right? And I talk about Ben Duckett, who is one I've always been a fan of and I always believed should be opening for England, right? Said before, it's not just about what a player has done, it's about what he can do. So there must have been people a few years ago when Alex Lees was averaging about 25 at Yorkshire saying, well, actually, I still believe in this guy. I still believe he's a good player. I still believe there's a 40 average or a test cricketer. Certainly people at Durham thought that. He was outstanding last season and he has been extremely good for a couple of seasons across formats, over 70 games to average 40 in one day cricket and 24 centuries and 49 half centuries in first class cricket with an average of 37, which is going up. Again, I know we say, was it just a good season last season? He's given himself a big ask to back that up to that standard, whatever he ended up averaging, 60, 70, who knows. But we know he's a good player now, again, actually going into Division 1 opening. But I just want to use Lees as an example without checking the exact stats. There were some tough years a few years ago, but he's got better, he's kicked on, he's found consistency. And I think some of those other guys, and actually when you look around, those averages in the 30s, actually maybe compared with everybody else, certainly amongst English batters, not that bad really. If we're finding some pretty stunning low bowling averages, Ben Code, Sam Cook, Ollie Robinson, Tom Law, smaller sample size around 20, where you're going to find some what might be perceived to be lowish batting averages, but we know historically, we always use Vaughan and Trescothick averaging about 30, being good test cricketers, and one or two others who averaged a lot more and maybe didn't quite succeed at test cricket. But anyway, like I say, just sort of stimulated by some comments that I saw on Basra, well, sort of, I guess, criticising batting averages and strike rates. So I thought I'd talk about stand up for batting averages and strike rates, because that is what we're going to get points for in cricket draft, isn't it? If you can find some batters who can score a lot of runs and score them quickly, you're going to do well, aren't you? So I'll see how I put this video together, because it's ended up... normally I like to be very concise talking to the camera, and then I've done the live streams a bit more informal, and then I just can't get it to work properly at the moment. I might or might not post this video. Regardless, lots of exciting things going on. Looks really exciting with what Cricket Draft are posting. Like I said before, I can't wait to bring on the season. I managed to watch a bit of cricket today. Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, which was reasonably exciting. But it's more exciting if you've got like a player on each side and you're racking up some Cricket Draft points, isn't it? Or you're getting a duck and throwing your phone across the room. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I mean, goodness me, this could end up being a long video. Don't forget to subscribe. How's that?